"He's under the floor," whispered little Kesha. And that one sentence made the entire police station fall silent. Police Chief Mike Thompson nearly spilled his coffee. A 5-year-old girl sitting in a chair far too big for her, calmly swinging her legs and clutching a worn-out teddy bear, had just said something no one expected to hear. "He's down there," she repeated, "where Mommy put the new tiles." Sergeant Davis didn't even look up from his paperwork. "Kids have wild imaginations," he muttered. "Probably watched something scary on TV." But there was something in Kesha's eyes that made Thompson pause. That steady, serious stare of someone who had seen something no child ever should. He'd seen that same look before, but only in people who'd lived through true trauma. Mrs. Williams, the elderly neighbor who had brought the child in, leaned forward. "Chief, something isn't right. Marcus Johnson's been missing 4 days. He'd never just leave his little girl. That man couldn't even go grocery shopping without telling someone." Thompson knew Marcus, a respected engineer, always on time, the kind of father who proudly carried school photos in his wallet. His wife, Vanessa, was the opposite, polished, distant, and unsettlingly composed. When she came in to report her husband missing, she'd done it with the same casual tone someone might use to renew a driver's license. "My husband travels for work sometimes," Vanessa had said smoothly, adjusting her designer bag. "It's nothing unusual. Marcus can be unpredictable." Something about the pause before that word had bothered Thompson, but he'd brushed it aside. Until now. Mrs. Williams lowered her voice. "The night he vanished, I heard shouting, then something heavy being dragged, and the next day a renovation crew showed up. They were working late into the night." A chill went down Thompson's spine. "Renovations? Where?" "The kitchen floor," she said. Vanessa said it was a surprise for when Marcus came home. That surprise suddenly felt like a warning. Thompson turned back to the child. She was drawing quietly. A room, a checkered floor, and beneath it, a man. The details were too specific to ignore. "Kesha," he said softly, crouching to meet her eyes. "Can you show me where Daddy is?" "In the new kitchen," she answered. "Mommy said it's our secret, but Daddy got really cold down there. He was crying before he went quiet forever." Mrs. Williams gasped, covering her mouth. Even Davis finally stopped pretending not to listen. Thompson steadied his voice. "Sweetheart, can you tell me what happened that night?" Kesha looked at her teddy bear for courage. "Mommy and Daddy were fighting. Mommy hit him with a big pot, and he didn't get up. Then she cried a lot and said it was his fault. After that, she wrapped him in the blue sheet from my room, dug a hole, and the workers came with new tiles." Her tone was calm, almost matter-of-fact, and that made it all the more chilling. As officers quietly began preparing a warrant, 40 miles away, Vanessa Johnson sat in her lawyer's office, filing paperwork to expedite her husband's life insurance claim. She had no idea that back at home, police were about to uncover a secret she thought would stay buried forever. Because Marcus Johnson had discovered something about her, something hidden deep in her cryptocurrency accounts, worth far more than money. Thompson had no idea that this quiet 5-year-old girl was about to turn a simple missing persons report into the most shocking investigation the city had ever seen. As he studied Kesha's drawing more closely, his pulse slowed. It wasn't just a man she had sketched beneath the floorboards. There were small rectangular shapes beside him, like bags drawn with the eerie precision of someone who had seen exactly what was hidden beneath that newly tiled kitchen. If this story of secrets and justice already has you curious, take a second to subscribe, because what's buried under that house is far darker than anyone could have imagined. What else had Kesha witnessed that night? And how could a 5-year-old child know details that even the police hadn't uncovered yet? The truth wasn't just buried with a man, it was buried with a secret that would shake everything that followed. 2 hours after Kesha's statement, Chief Thompson was on the phone with Judge Morrison, doing his best to sound calm. "Your Honor, I need authorization to search the Johnson property." There was silence on the line before the skeptical reply came. "You're asking me to approve digging up someone's home based on the words of a 5-year-old? That won't hold up for 5 minutes in court." "Sir, the child describes specific details, down to a recent renovation, and the wife's behavior is unusually cold," Thompson insisted. "Do you have any evidence? Any adult witnesses? The call ended with a heavy click. Thompson exhaled sharply, frustration burning through his chest. 20 years on the force, and some things never change. When the suspect came from money, the system suddenly moved at a crawl. Davis appeared at his desk, his face grave. "Chief, we just got something interesting. Vanessa Johnson was seen at her lawyer's office this morning. She's trying to fast-track her husband's life insurance payout." Thompson's jaw tightened. 4 days missing, and she's already focused on money, noted. Just then, the phone rang again. Davis picked it up, then looked at Thompson. "It's her." Thompson took a steadying breath. "Deputy Thompson speaking." "Sheriff, this is Vanessa Johnson. I heard my daughter was there today." Her voice was controlled, but something trembled underneath. "She's safe, ma'am," Thompson replied evenly. "Kesha was just worried about her father." "Oh, I'm sure she was. But I do hope you're not taking her little fantasies too seriously," Vanessa said, her words dripping with polished condescension. "What kind of fantasies?" Thompson asked quietly. "Oh, you know how children are," she continued, forcing a light laugh. "Stories about monsters, secret rooms, people buried, things like that. It's her way of coping." Thompson froze. Buried. No one says that word by accident. "Interesting that you'd mention that, Mrs. Johnson," he said slowly, "because your daughter was very specific about the location." A long pause followed. Then her tone sharpened. "Deputy, I hope you're not planning to disturb a grieving family over the imagination of a child. My lawyer would find that very disappointing." The threat was clear. Thompson's voice stayed steady. "Just doing my job, ma'am. Have a good evening." After the line went dead, he stared at the phone. Years of experience told him one thing. Vanessa Johnson wasn't nervous about a misunderstanding. She was afraid of discovery. Davis returned, holding a folder. "Chief, I pulled Marcus's phone records. He made several calls to a divorce lawyer right before he disappeared." Thompson's heart sank. He was planning to leave her. "And here's the kicker," Davis continued. "The house, the one they live in, is legally his. If he divorced her, she would have lost everything. But if he's declared dead, it all goes to her." Now the pieces fit perfectly. A motive, a timeline, and a renovation scheduled right after the disappearance. Just as the realization sank in, the door to the station opened. Mrs. Williams stepped inside, gently guiding Kesha by the hand. The little girl spotted Thompson instantly. Her face brightened with a faint smile as she ran toward him, as if she already knew he was the only one who believed her. "Detective Thompson." Kesha climbed into the chair beside his desk, hugging her teddy bear tightly. "Mom's mad at me for talking about Dad," she said quietly. Thompson leaned forward. "Why is she mad, sweetheart?" "She said people are going to take her away, and then I'll be all alone. But I told her you're nice, and you won't let that happen." Thompson's heart sank. The child had no idea that her innocent honesty had just set something enormous in motion. "Kesha," he said softly, "do you remember anything else about the night your dad got quiet?" The little girl thought for a moment, tracing a finger over the armrest. "Mommy cried a lot," she said. "Then she talked on the phone with a man who called her my love. Daddy never called her that." Thompson exchanged a look with Mrs. Williams. Another puzzle piece slid into place. An affair. "Do you know who that man was?" he asked. "I don't know his name," Kesha replied. "He came to our house once when Daddy was at work. Mommy said he was Uncle Richard, but Daddy doesn't have a brother. They kissed like Mommy and Daddy used to before they started fighting." Thompson exhaled slowly. This child, in her pure, unfiltered honesty, had provided more useful information in 2 short talks than most detectives could gather in weeks. Her innocence was both a blessing and a curse. She saw everything, but understood none of the dark weight behind it. While Vanessa Johnson was likely at home plotting her next move, her daughter had just handed the truth to justice. Every threat, every carefully rehearsed lie, only made the truth harder to bury. Thompson knew he was dealing with more than a criminal investigation. This was a chess match against privilege and power. It would take strategy, not just instinct. "Davis," Thompson said, lowering his voice, "I need something. Unofficial. You still have that contact at the telecom company?" Davis smirked. "My brother-in-law. What do you need?" Marcus Johnson's phone data from the night he disappeared. Location pings, tower connections, everything. I want to know if that phone stayed still or was moved. Got it. Thompson scribbled notes in a separate notebook, one he didn't keep with the official files. Meanwhile, Mrs. Williams was proving to be an unexpected ally. She had the one thing every great detective needed: time, patience, and the quiet ability to watch without being seen. That morning, she called in a hushed voice. "Sheriff, Vanessa's packing 2 big suitcases, and that man Kesha mentioned, Uncle Richard, he's helping her. They're loading heavy boxes from the basement." Thompson's pulse quickened. "Can you get the license plate?" "Already did," she replied proudly. "And don't worry, Sheriff, they won't notice me. I've been watching people for 70 years. For the first time in days, Thompson smiled. "You might just be the best detective on my team." Moments later, Davis returned, a mix of excitement and disbelief on his face. "Chief, I got it. Marcus Johnson's phone stayed inside the house from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. the night he vanished. After that, the signal went dark. Exactly the window Kesha described. Thompson felt the air shift. The puzzle was nearly complete. "And the man? Did you find him?" "Richard Steinberg, 42, financial advisor. And get this, he co-owns a cryptocurrency company registered under Vanessa Johnson's name, formed just 3 months before Marcus disappeared." Thompson leaned back in his chair, the pattern finally clear. So they planned an escape route, and something went wrong. He grabbed the phone and dialed one last number. "Dr. Moore, it's Mike Thompson. I need your help. I've got a 5-year-old who's seen something she shouldn't have. I need her statement handled with your expertise. It needs to hold up, no matter what comes next." On the other end, Dr. Patricia Moore sighed softly. "Mike, you know testimony from someone that young is rarely accepted. But if what you're saying is true—" Her voice trailed off. She could already sense that this was no ordinary case. "This case is different, Pat," Thompson said firmly. "This child knows things only an eyewitness could. If we handle it right, with your expertise, we might finally bring justice where it's due." Dr. Moore agreed to meet Kesha that same afternoon. Meanwhile, Thompson was preparing his boldest move yet, confronting Vanessa Johnson before she had the chance to disappear. "Davis," he said, grabbing his coat, "let's go pay Mrs. Johnson a social visit. Nothing official, just see how she's holding up." A faint knowing smile crossed his face. "Sometimes," he added, "the most confident people make the biggest mistakes when they think they're safe." As they drove through the quiet streets toward the Johnson residence, Thompson's thoughts raced. Vanessa had probably already contacted her lawyers, but all the influence and money in the world couldn't protect her from one thing: the truth spoken by an innocent child. Every veiled threat, every forced smile, every attempt to use power as a shield only strengthened Thompson's resolve. He'd spent his career protecting the powerless from those who thought rules didn't apply to them. This time would be no different. When they arrived, Thompson immediately noticed the luggage beside Richard's car. He smiled inwardly. "They always think they can outrun consequences," he muttered, "but arrogance has a way of turning into a trap." He knocked on the front door with quiet confidence, the confidence of someone holding the winning cards. Vanessa appeared, her carefully composed smile faltering as soon as she saw his face. "Mrs. Johnson," Thompson said evenly, "glad to see you're still in town. From what I can tell," he nodded toward the car, "you were getting ready for a little trip." Vanessa's voice stayed polite, but her hands trembled slightly. "Just a short weekend away while we wait for news about Marcus." "Interesting," Thompson replied, "because I've just learned something fascinating about your husband's phone." He held up an envelope. "According to cell tower data, his device stayed right here, inside this house from 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. on the night he went missing." After that silence, the color drained from Vanessa's face. He must have left it behind. Maybe forgot his charger. Thompson tilted his head. "That's quite a coincidence, especially since your daughter described that exact window of time as when she heard a fight in the kitchen." He paused, watching her expression tighten. "And she also mentioned something about an Uncle Richard." At that moment, a man appeared in the doorway, nervous, pale. "Richard Steinberg, I presume," Thompson said smoothly. The same name that appears beside yours on the registration papers of your new cryptocurrency company. Vanessa's composure cracked for a fraction of a second. You can't prove anything, she snapped, forcing a brittle laugh. You're building an entire theory out of a child's imagination. Imagination? Thompson raised an eyebrow. Funny, because while you were packing, your neighbor Mrs. Williams was taking notes, including the license plate of the car you loaded with heavy boxes from your basement this morning. Richard froze. Vanessa, you said nobody was watching. Be quiet, she snapped, her voice breaking for the first time. And one more thing, Thompson continued, unbothered by the growing tension. We obtained financial records from your little side business. Money transfers, withdrawals from Marcus's joint account, and attempts to fast-track his insurance. Tell me, Mrs. Johnson, did you really think you could erase a person and still profit from it? Richard's voice trembled. Vanessa, you told me it was a clean separation. You said he'd agreed to everything. You fool! Vanessa hissed, turning on him. Do you think a man like Marcus would ever hand over his inheritance to me? He was going to leave me with nothing. Thompson watched the scene unfold, his expression unreadable. Arrogance always crumbled faster than evidence ever could. You know what amazes me most? He said calmly. You completely underestimated a 5-year-old. You thought you could scare her into silence. But she told the truth. She told us everything. Vanessa's voice shook. That child doesn't understand what she saw. She understood enough, Thompson said, stepping closer, to lead us exactly where to look and to describe in perfect detail what happened that night in your kitchen. A long silence filled the room. Even Richard couldn't look at her. Thompson straightened his coat. Mrs. Johnson, we're done talking here. The rest of this story will be told in a courtroom, not your living room. Outside, as officers quietly arrived to secure the scene, Thompson glanced at the small house one more time. Somewhere across town, Kesha was drawing another picture for Dr. Moore, this time of a sunny sky and her father smiling. For the first time, Thompson allowed himself to believe that justice, though late, was finally coming home. And here's the most ironic part, Thompson said, his voice steady but cold. If you had treated Kesha with even a fraction of the love she deserved, she might never have spoken. But you terrified her so much that she trusted strangers more than her own mother. Richard's face crumpled. I didn't know she was going to hurt anyone, he stammered. I just helped with the money. Thompson's eyes didn't waver. You didn't just help with the money, Richard. You helped bury what was left behind. Kesha saw you digging with her mother. The man broke down completely, sobbing as Vanessa glared at him in disbelief. You can't rely on a child's word over 2 respectable adults, she shouted. Respectable adults? Thompson laughed quietly. You mean 2 people who thought they could deceive everyone around them? That child gave us details that led to real, physical evidence, data, records, and a timeline. Her truth was stronger than all your lies combined. Outside, the wail of approaching sirens echoed down the street. Thompson had called for backup long before arriving. The saddest part, he said softly, almost to himself, is that you destroyed your family, scarred an innocent child, and lost everything, all for greed. Marcus Johnson was a decent man. He deserved better than this. Vanessa's defiance shattered. She sank to the floor, her voice breaking. Richard tried to flee, but Thompson had already blocked every exit. The arrogance that had carried them for so long vanished, replaced by the hollow panic of people who finally understood the truth. Justice had arrived, carried by the voice of a 5-year-old girl who refused to stay silent. As the cuffs clicked into place, one question lingered in Thompson's mind. How would Kesha understand what she had done when she realized her courage had changed everything? 6 months later, the trial was over. The city had never seen a case like it. One afternoon, as Thompson sat at his desk buried in paperwork, the phone rang. Sheriff, came the warm, familiar voice of Mrs. Williams. I thought you'd like to know. Kesha is thriving. The school says she's adjusting beautifully, and her therapist says she's doing even better than expected. Yesterday, she asked if she could write you a letter. Thompson smiled for the first time in weeks. How's she coping with everything? She understands, Mrs. Williams said softly. She knows her mother made terrible choices, but she doesn't hold hate in her heart. Yesterday she said, "Grandma Williams, I helped Daddy not be forgotten, right?" The old woman's voice cracked. That child has a kind of wisdom most adults never find. Meanwhile, in the state correctional facility, Vanessa Johnson had discovered that wealth and influence meant nothing behind walls. Once the picture of luxury, she now spent her days in quiet isolation. A reminder that respect can't be bought. Her former partner, Richard Steinberg, fared no better. Sentenced as an accomplice, he lost not only his freedom, but also the fortune he'd once dreamed of keeping. Their perfect plan had crumbled the moment Kesha spoke the truth. The irony was almost poetic. Two people who believed they were too clever to be caught, undone by the honesty of a child who hadn't yet learned to lie. Dr. Patricia Moore, the psychologist who had carefully guided Kesha through her healing, became a passionate advocate for young witnesses. The Kesha Johnson case, she said during a lecture, proved that a child's unfiltered truth can be one of the most reliable forms of testimony when handled with care. Her work inspired a new national standard known as the Kesha Protocol, a framework for protecting and validating the voices of children in sensitive investigations. Dozens of families were helped because one little girl had dared to speak. Months later, the Johnson house, once a symbol of tragedy, stood empty. That's when Mrs. Williams proposed an idea. "Why don't we turn it into a community center?" she suggested, "a place where kids can play, learn, and speak up when something doesn't feel right." The proposal was approved without hesitation. The Marcus Johnson Community Center became a beacon of hope, proof that even the darkest story could be rewritten through truth and compassion. On the first anniversary of Marcus's death, Thompson joined Mrs. Williams and Kesha at the cemetery. The little girl, now 6, placed a small bouquet of yellow flowers, her father's favorite, on the grave. "Daddy," she whispered, "everyone knows you were a good man. Nobody will forget." Thompson knelt beside her. "You know you're a hero, right? Because of your courage, your father got justice, and you're safe." Kesha smiled, her eyes filled with a wisdom far beyond her years. "I just told the truth, Uncle Thompson. Grandma Williams says lying hurts more than the truth." The detective smiled gently, looking toward the sky as sunlight broke through the clouds. For the first time in a long time, he felt peace, knowing that out of tragedy had come something pure, powerful, and unforgettable. Months later, Thompson learned that Vanessa Johnson had tried to appeal her sentence, arguing that a child's testimony should never have been allowed. Her appeal was denied in less than 24 hours. In his ruling, the judge wrote, "Credibility has no age. This child showed more integrity and courage than many adults who have stood before this court." The last news about Richard Steinberg came through the papers. He had broken down completely in prison, muttering the same words over and over. The girl knew. The girl knew everything. Eventually, he was transferred to a psychiatric facility, lost in the echoes of his own guilt. On difficult days, Thompson often opened his desk drawer and looked at a small photograph, Kesha at the new community center playground, smiling on the swing that had been built in her father's memory. That picture reminded him that sometimes justice doesn't come from power or evidence or years of experience. Sometimes it comes from the smallest, purest voice, the one brave enough to tell the truth. The arrogance of Vanessa Johnson, who once believed she could manipulate a child and outsmart the system, had become her downfall. And Kesha, the little girl who only wanted her father to be remembered, proved something the world should never forget. The truth whispered by an innocent heart will always outshine the lies born of greed. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that justice can still rise from the smallest voices, subscribe to the channel for more true stories where the courage of ordinary people defeats the arrogance of those who believe they're untouchable. Because sometimes the greatest victories come from the smallest warriors.